Skyrim just got yet another new update, at least kind of. This is a bit of an interesting situation where Skyrim has technically gotten 3 new updates in the past 2 weeks or so. And in this video I'll explain why a game that's about to turn 11 years old is getting several updates in a 2-week period, and I'll even explain why by the end of this video you may be buying Skyrim again, and no, I'm not joking. A couple of weeks ago now, Skyrim was updated with a wide variety of bug fixes, many of these coming to Creation Club items, as well as there were a couple of notable other bug fixes for the game itself. For example, that age-old mannequin bug was finally fixed. This being where mannequins would sometimes move and actually look at you as you were just walking around. This was terrifying, and frankly, fixing this about a month before Halloween was a questionable move by Bethesda. I feel like they should have just left this one in for the next month and a half. But they also finally fixed the 11-year-old marked for death bug. This being a bug where you could actually stack marked for death on enemies just by using the shout repeatedly. It would reduce an enemy's armor to the point where it would go negative and you could one-shot them. Those were just a couple of the bug fixes that ended up shipping with this build. The more notable changes were around translations, at least partly. The anniversary edition of Skyrim was released in Japan. This is announced at Tokyo Game Show. So a bunch of translation files were updated for both Japanese and Chinese. As well as Bethesda added a new installed content in-game menu, so you'd have the ability to actually see what Creation Club items you had installed and activated on a given save. So all of that was fine and dandy. Definitely a bit out of the blue. It was one of the first updates Skyrim had gotten in a very long time, but how on earth did we get 2 more updates after this one? Well, unfortunately, this first update actually had a major issue. It broke some mods. I know some of you are like, well, yeah, doesn't that always happen with basically every update? And you would be correct, but this time around, it actually broke some mods on consoles, which is not something that typically happens with Skyrim updates. This update introduced a bug where certain mods on consoles, it seems like it was largely at random, just would no longer work. They would no longer appear in your load order, and they would also just not appear in your game anymore. So for some people, their mods just disappeared outright. As you can imagine, this is quite a big issue, but Bethesda was very quick with a turnaround to fix this, and a few days later, Skyrim was updated yet again to resolve this bug, and there was even a couple of other bug fixes added with that additional patch to the game. So this double update situation, although being pretty frustrating for a bunch of people, wasn't the end of the world. Although the first update broke many mods, the second update didn't break nearly as many, just largely SKSE and some of the quintessential mods, so only a few things actually needed to be updated twice, while a lot of things needed to be updated once. And really just the fact that Skyrim updated at all was the bigger issue here. There was nearly a 9-month gap in between updates, with the previous update coming all the way back in January, and since this most recent update came largely out of the blue, not many mod authors were prepared for it, and mods have definitely been taking longer to update this time around. And some still haven't updated, or were only updated in the past couple of days. Race Menu, for example, is an incredibly popular mod that, as of right now, only has an updated version on Patreon. It's completely free to download, but the Nexus version has yet to be updated fully. But as I did mention earlier, there's in fact a third update to Skyrim, to version 1.6.659. And this one's actually a bit different, as Skyrim was just released on GOG. And this is going to be a bit more significant than just the same game getting released on a different storefront. The latest Steam version of Skyrim right now is 1.6.640, while the current GOG version of Skyrim is 1.6.659, meaning that this GOG version of Skyrim is both a newer and a different build than the Steam version, meaning that some mods will need to be updated to actually work with this GOG version. But of course, this version is also going to come with some unique features, which if you are interested in picking up Skyrim yet again, you could use my GOG affiliate link down below to get either the Anniversary Edition or the Special Edition on GOG, and I'll get a couple of dollars as a kickback. The GOG version of Skyrim is completely DRM free. You can play this totally offline without needing to connect to anything. And this is including Creation Club and Bethesda.net. The menus for these two have been disabled in the GOG version of the game. You still can get all of the new content by buying the Anniversary Edition on Steam. It'll still be added to the game, but if you're somebody who is vehemently against Creation Club, you could technically just buy the Special Edition here and not have to see that menu ever again. And if you're tired of Skyrim updates breaking all of your mods, GOG Galaxy actually does have a pretty unique feature where you can very easily and simply roll back your game version. So unfortunately, at least at the time of filming, I can't really show you this because the only version on GOG for Skyrim is the latest one, the newest build that was just released. But whenever the next update to the game inevitably comes out, you'll be able to easily roll back to the last version. You can actually see me do it here with Cyberpunk. You basically just click download on one of the older versions and my Cyberpunk will be reverted to an older version of the game very simply and easily. So going forward on GOG, if you update all of your mods to the current version, you hypothetically will never really have to deal with things breaking again. Of course, there are a lot of other tools that achieve the same thing, but it would be nice to just have have it in the launcher. But there are a couple of other interesting aspects to this. Reportedly, the SKSE devs were actually given early access to the build on GOG, so SKSE is already updated. But on GOG, they also say, additionally, GOG is preparing for something special to provide an even smoother experience with mods. Expect more details soon. So I'm pretty curious to see what exactly this entails. Is it directly related to Skyrim and Skyrim mods, or perhaps just the broader GOG platform and modding games? Official modding tools for Cyberpunk just released a couple of weeks ago, so it would make a lot of sense for them to invest more heavily into this with perhaps some additional options in GOG overall, which could definitely benefit Skyrim users. Skyrim being released on GOG got a full write-up on Nexus mods almost immediately, almost like this was pre-planned. And the announcement on GOG's official website even mentions how this version of Skyrim will work out of the box with Vortex, so perhaps there's some kind of partnership or something going on with Nexus mods and GOG in the future here. Either way, this is definitely a pretty interesting situation. DRM has been a hot topic over the past few years in gaming, and coupling that with the removal of the Creation Club menu could make this a genuine reason for people to buy Skyrim yet again. And if you've somehow never bought Skyrim on PC, this is definitely an enticing price. I mean, this is a good reason to buy Skyrim on PC and a good platform to buy it on. Although, of course, be warned that this is going to be a slightly updated version of the game, so some mods will need to be updated. Which, speaking of, not everything right now works on this newest version. Some mods like Address Library, at least at the time of filming, have yet to be updated, although that'll very likely happen soon, and I wouldn't be shocked if a few other SKSE dependent mods will also need to be updated. And if all of that somehow wasn't enough, Skyrim Anniversary Edition also just dropped on the Nintendo Switch, so you'll be able to get all that extra Creation Club content on the go if you'd like to. As I mentioned in my last video, with these recent updates, there's really been a stir of rumors around Creation Club making a return. The rumor of Creation Club making a return has been something that's been ongoing for a while now, particularly in Fallout modding Discord, but it would of course apply to Skyrim as well. And as we start to see some of these new changes, Skyrim coming to completely new storefronts, and even this very convenient Creation Club related menu getting added several years down the line, it makes people wonder, and it even makes me wonder if something else is in the works, is something on the horizon. Creation Club's kind of this weird enigma of a situation where we don't know exactly why Creation Club stopped. A lot of people point towards this Creation Club lawsuit that popped up a few years ago, this claiming that if you bought the season pass for Fallout 4, all of the Creation Club items should be given to you. It's not entirely clear what ended up happening with that, but at least on the Skyrim side, it's pretty clear that that hasn't stopped them from releasing new Creation Club items. Although Anniversary Edition was considered a larger release and you could buy it separately, it also was released in game. Like, you could just go onto Skyrim, go onto the Creation Club store, and individually buy all of the things from Anniversary Edition, almost like a typical Creation Club release. It of course was just packaged very differently. And to me, Creation Club coming back makes a ton of sense. I mean, Skyrim has a ridiculous amount of players. It has more players than both Fallout 76 and ESO on both Xbox and Steam, which are definitely the two biggest platforms for all of those games. We can't see the PlayStation numbers, but you have to imagine they've remained relatively healthy as well. It doesn't really seem like Creation Club was all that expensive to maintain. Of course, all of the frameworks are there, and even some systems are getting some updates recently, so perhaps something else is on the horizon. Either way, that is the story with some of the recent Skyrim updates, what's been going on with the game overall, and why your game may have been updated recently. But one final thing I want to mention before the end of the video, there's currently a GoFundMe that's nearly at its limit for a mod author in the Skyrim community that requires a life-saving surgery. The mod author in question is JD Anchor. He's made a ton of great mods. You've probably downloaded at least some of them, and if you would consider supporting, I'll have a link to the GoFundMe in both the description and in the pinned comment.